Tonight we saw Matthew Vaughn's Argylle, the 7th, 9th, something movie in the Kick-Ass Kingsman shared cinematic universe.
The Mark Millar, Matthew Vaughn, ex-Matthew Vaughn, ex-Fred Fox from the Angry Video Game Nerd shared universe.
Yeah, Connor, what was the plot of Argylle?
Argylle sees Bryce Dallas Howard as a writer who's writing a series of spy novels that seem to be foretelling events for the CIA, but then like 100,000 twists happen, and Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard, they're really spies, and then they have to destroy Bryan Cranston's organization of evil, which, as it turns out, this organization is just a random organization that doesn't really matter. But anyways, she thinks that she is Argylle because her name is R. Kelly or something like that. She's pissing on kids. And she's like, oh no, I'm R. Kelly the whole time. And then they fight, and then it turns out Henry Cavill's Argylle is really Argylle. And so this is a prequel to the true adventures of the real Argylle, who the movie you thought was fake, but then it wasn't. But then Henry Cavill also turns out to be a Kingsman, because I don't know how many of these shitty Kingsman movies they're gonna make before they just quit. So
at least 3 more, apparently.
Many, three more are actively in the works as part of franchises that are. But also you got the Kick-Ass 3.
We don't technically know if the Kick-Ass one is. It's just very heavily implied.
It's very heavily implied, and Kick-Ass and Kingsman. Hit Girl joins the Kingsman in the comic books last year by behest of Matthew Vaughn and Mark Millar. See, probably the plan, if they're reviving the Kick-Ass franchise with a soft reboot spin-off series, and the twist of that is going to be that Eggsy shows up and he says, "Oi, mate!"
So stupid.
So it's a really convoluted movie. It's a 2.5 hour really convoluted movie that's a little too long. That's the plot. So Aiden, what did you think of really convoluted movie that's a little too long?
It's bad. My thought, about halfway through, my only thought was that the movie is almost fun. There's a lot of set pieces and action scenes and jokes that are almost good, and your brain says, oh, that was good, but you don't have any fun watching it happen. And the movie goes on and on like that for a very long time. A very, very fucking long time. It just keeps going. And then, like 20 minutes from the end, it is just filled with the most horrendous action scenes I've ever seen. The one where they're using the colored smoke grenades in the hallway is very cringe and embarrassing. The one where she oil skates, she ice skates on the oil, is also very cringe and embarrassing, and both of those go on for like 15 minutes each. The entire last 20 minutes is cringe, and it takes the movie from almost fun to just unpleasant. And the mid-credits scene, where it's revealed that Henry Cavill's really Argylle and he's in the Kingsman, doesn't make any sense. I don't I don't understand what's happening. It's very strange, and I'm not looking forward to whatever comes after this. The first half of the movie has a funny premise and works like 20% of the time, and it gets close enough to enjoyable that if it maintained that, this would be like an okay thing to watch on Netflix with a hangover or something. But it gets so convoluted and bad and weird at the end that I don't really know what to make of it. It's very weird. All of the action scenes are just... They're well made, but they're just slightly boring. And Matthew Vaughn got really excited that he was able to license that new Beatles song. And that plays like every 5 minutes, and it's really fucking weird.
Because Beatles has traditionally never allowed anybody to license their songs. And that's why if you don't watch a Beatles specific movie, they're all covers. Even the actual movies that are like licensed by the Beatles aren't licensed to have Beatles songs. So
yeah, that fucking...
So they're like, you had to promote our new Beatles single and try to breathe some life into this bitch, Matthew Vaughn. So then he's like, this is my favorite song of all time. It's an oldie, a golden oldie that came out 2 months ago.
It's weird that the movie...
Even though you've had
the movie has to
years.
I don't know if
in the Kingsman universe
they hadn't decided the license.
Beatles, I don't think they did.
Because Now and Then legitimately came out like maybe 3 months ago. And everyone in this movie talks about it like it's the most classic song of all time, and there's like an old-timey music box that plays it.
They never mention the Beatles specifically. Like, my assumption is a different song was written in mind, and then somehow some
licensing opportunity came up to
license a Beatles song for the first and probably only opportunity, which is to use this movie as promotion for the new Beatles single.
It doesn't even really fit in the scenes where it's in.
No.
Like, there's a scene where the main characters, Sam Rockwell and Ron Howard's daughter, dance to the song. It's not really a dance song. It's... I don't know. It's weird.
Just a weird introspective song that John Lennon wrote and was like, you should do this with me, Paul McCartney.
It doesn't really fit in the movie, even though it's in like every scene.
Actually, I think it was like a John Lennon demo that then they just like took the demo and used AI to make it not sound like shit, basically.
Yeah, they did a couple other... I know there was like 2 or 3 other songs that were in that same batch that they put on the Beatles anthology and did the same thing for.
Yeah,
but this one was so fucked up.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Everything in this movie feels like it should work and be like wacky and funny, and the premise is interesting, but everything feels just very slightly off and nothing works. And the end is just a disaster. It's real bad. Anyway, Connor, what'd you think of Argylle?
Well, I had the privilege of sleeping like 3 hours every night this week, so I fell asleep for like the last action sequence, which traditionally is where Matthew Vaughn goes off the rails and the action stops being good, because he's good at making action, and then he wants to make the last dramatic action set piece to wrap it all together type of thing.
Like the fucking jetpack scene in Kick-Ass.
The jetpack scene in Kick-Ass, which was pretty cringe. Kingsman Golden Circle, that movie started getting weird.
Elton John karate fight. Yeah.
His last triumphant action fights are like a 12-year-old wrote them every time.
Yeah.
And I don't know like what type of drugs Matthew Vaughn is selling to allow him to keep getting money for these movies, because I don't particularly think Kingsman 2 or The Kingsman did that good.
The Kingsman was a big flop, but that was a COVID movie, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, COVID movies were a miracle for actual flops. Because if you like had a franchise
Yeah,
and it flopped, you could be like, okay, yes. These movies didn't flop during COVID, but that's for, there's like movies that legitimately, like Tenet would have done pretty good if it wasn't, if Christopher Nolan wasn't like, we'll have to release it at the height of the pandemic, when absolutely no one's allowed to go outside, but if theaters were to make it so everyone had to sit 50 paces apart, we could have 3 people per movie, and after 750 showings of our 3-hour movie, we could make the equivalent of 35 standard showings, which if we did that per theater per weekend. Yeah, no, there was no mathematical possibility that Tenet was going to work based on the stringent government restrictions to the theater system. Yeah. Some of them were just flops. Some of them people just didn't give a fuck about, and Kingsman seemed to be one of them. Bloodshot came out like right before, and Bloodshot was the first COVID flop. It got the
first clue.
It was the first COVID flop, but Paramount was smart enough to say, "Look, we had like 2 days before COVID started that Bloodshot was in theaters, and if we look at the Friday numbers and shit, it wasn't that good. And you know, we had like 5 days." Which I feel like some studios and some franchises wouldn't have the self-awareness to pull the plug on. So Paramount was actually smart for once and was like, yoink. You know, it's gone. It's over. No one wants Bloodshot. This movie sucked. So it's probably a good excuse to pull it. Because then you can say, it's a COVID flop. But at the same... So it doesn't look as bad, like on sales reports to investors, but... Secretly, the people behind the desk are like, okay, that shit wasn't gonna succeed anyways. Because Vin Diesel is a draw exclusively in Fast and the Furious movies and nothing else. He never has been a draw for anything else, and hence why, whatever. Unrelated. But my point is, I don't think anybody but Matthew Vaughn and Mark Millar are fans of the Kingsman universe, and I guess we don't have confirmation Kick-Ass is gonna do it, but it seems strongly like 2 of the important people working on this franchise are making that happen since last year while developing a Kingsman spin-off and a Kick-Ass spin-off. The series crossed over in the comic books and had Hit Girl join the Kingsman, and Kick-Ass just like flew to space and became like an omnipotent god or something based on Wikipedia. So I think the idea is that we're probably gonna see Hit Girl continued adventures. One thing that kind of annoyed me too, like at first I was like, oh, it was a Kingsman movie the whole time. A not surprising twist, but also like, I thought you could like not. You know, but whatever is what I thought. And then I was like, but like half this cast has played like other characters. Like, okay, I mean, Mummy Girl, like... sure, whatever. She played like a henchman in the first movie like 10 years ago. Maybe you can get away with it. Samuel L. Jackson played like the same fucking character, except this time he's a good guy.
Yep.
He just reused Sam Jackson except as a good guy, which would be fine. But then putting this in the same universe means now Samuel L. Jackson... There were 2 Samuel Jacksons. Were they twins?
And 2...
Are they going to do the twin brother?
2 Mummy Girls. And also...
It couldn't have been it. Those can't be the 2. I'm so excited for the Avengers-style movie where Sam Jackson walks in and is like, Eggsy, we're friends. Secretly have never fought to the death. Yeah, I don't know.
You think Elton John's gonna come back for the Avengers
as a different character? Yes, he's gonna play. He's no longer Elton John played himself in Kingsman 2. Elton John is now gonna play a totally original character for the King's Avengers. Actually, no, just the Avengers. Because they're going to buy the rights to the British
Avengers.
Show. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's like a spy thing. It was like a Mission Impossible, but British. which Mission Impossible was TV version of James Bond, but American.
Sure.
So then they were like, but we gotta get back at him, so we're making the Avengers. So Matthew Vaughn buys the British rights to
You know what
the
else they could
Avengers.
do? Get Smart was just a parody of Mission Impossible that ran alongside Mission Impossible. So what if Matthew Vaughn also bought Get Smart, right? And did something with it. I don't know what. I don't know what he would do with it, but
Matthew Vaughn just he's got shit he's got to do, man. And that is find any excuse to expand his Kingsman universe that people only care about the first part of. And presumably when Kick-Ass joins the universe, then people will exclusively care about the first Kingsman movie and also Kick-Ass. What's crazy is Matthew Vaughn was on like a streak. Like he did like Layer Cake, Kick-Ass, First Class,
yep.
Kingsman 1, and then the Kingsman for some reason became his obsession, and he started making really shitty Kingsman sequels. And rather than finish the trilogy to Kingsman, he started a side trilogy that was also set to all be directed by him.
And
instead of finishing either of those trilogies, he started another side trilogy. And now they're making a trilogy of Kick-Ass spin-off movies that are not actually directed by Matthew Vaughn. He's not interested in that. But he's simultaneously directing 3 spy movie trilogies, all set in the same universe, but refuses to finish any of them. So at some point the bubble's gonna pop, and I don't think we'll see a conclusion to... We'll get like... I think the Hitler movie might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. If quality and box office doesn't start to improve. But it seems like since Apple TV is putting this one out, maybe Apple will do the ultimate we don't care because we're just putting it in theater to get some bonus money before it becomes nameless streaming content.
The plot of The King's Man 2 sounds insane. I was reading about it when I was reading about this whole mess, and it's like the Hitler rises to power, but it is an elaborate conspiracy that gets exposed about how the English government put Hitler in power. I'm reading that, I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with like a fucking British punk chav guy who turns into a spy?
Okay.
And like kills fucking Samuel Jackson, who's like a man-child
Hear me out.
black man.
Kick-Ass was put out by Dark Horse, Image, and Marvel at different points in its run, but somehow Mark Millar has owned it the whole time. Kingsman is a similar situation, but Wanted is also a similar situation put out by DC. Will Matthew Vaughn go back and talk, and Mark Miller,
I don't know.
talking, here's what I'm coming at. There's a 2010 DC Comics movie called Wanted starring Chris Evans, and it's red, but instead of being old people, it's young people. And it's owned by...
And it's made by Mark Millar.
It's made by Mark Millar. Do you
It'll
think they'll
get tied in
retroact?
at some point?
Because
Or
Mark
they'll just
Millar has his own his
probably-
own universe where it's just whatever shit he comes up with.
Matthew Vaughn is probably just gonna reboot it and make like fucking Wanted. Fucking it'll.
No,
have,
like
some
he's gonna do
retarded
like
name,
two like Wanted side. Wanted's the movie. Do you remember the curve the bullets?
but
You don't.
Angelina Jolie.
Yes, and Chris Evans.
Chris Evans is in that movie. I've
Yeah,
never.
Chris
seen
Evans
that
is
movie.
in every comic book
All
movie
I know.
until he became Captain America. Then
All
he
I
stopped
know-
being- he's in Snowpiercer, Scott Pilgrim, Fantastic
He is
Four,
in-
Wanted, Captain America.
I didn't realize Wanted.
He's just guy who
I've
gets
never
attacked.
actually seen Wanted. I just know about the bullet curving thing.
Yes. That was created by Mark Millar. And do you think that universe is going to come into play in the universe?
Yeah.
And then the bullet curving will start...
Well, I think like at
Do you
the
think people will
at
start
the end
curving
of-
bullets?
at the end of
no. It looks
in-
like Eggsy's going to get shot and then the bullet curves around his head and hits a bad guy.
yeah. Well, I think like
And guess who turns
Now that-
around? Chris Evans.
now that we're doing post credit
and Samuel
scenes,
Jackson.
now that we're doing post credit scenes in these movies, I think there needs to be one where like after The King's Man 2, there's a flash forward, and Eggsy meets Angelina Jolie, and she's like, I need to teach you a special technique. And the next movie starts shooting bullets around corners.
And then they could make Nemesis. He's a really edgy Batman. He's like Mark Millar's like, what if we combined the Batman with the Joker?
Just sounds like something that's
and then they could tie the boys in.
Did Mark Millar make The Boys?
Yeah. Oh, wait, never mind. Who did The Boys? Okay, he didn't do The Boys, I apologize. Adaptions of Mark Millar's work. Wanted, the Kick-Ass movies, Captain America The Civil War is technically an adaptation of his work, as well as Logan. He's a really good... And Superman Red Son was written by him. So, I mean, he has a lot of...
So he's an edgelord.
He's a really good writer. Ultimates as well was by him. He's a really good edgelord writer who occasionally is a really bad writer. He's basically Matthew Vaughn for comic books, where it's like, okay, buddy, maybe if you slowed down and acted like less of a fucking idiot, sometimes you could go back to being good at making movies. Because occasionally you see in this movie that Matthew Vaughn is good at making movies still, but he has no one to rein him in, and he's working directly with Mark Millar, who isn't about to rein him in either, because Mark Millar is also a weird, crazy edgelord guy. So they're just buck breaking each other, basically.
I don't think that's how you use buck breaking, but...
They're buck breaking each other. Anyhow, Aiden, we barely talked about this movie. Mostly just talked about how baffling it is. But I think my entire thoughts could be, this could have been a good movie. There's a lot of good performances and decent ideas, but fucking goddamn Matthew Vaughn is like, I'm just gonna do the most. I'm gonna do way too fucking much. And that is what he did. He did way too fucking much. Could have been good. It was way too fucking much. And that is my opinion on Argylle. And the Kingsman universe gives me a behind the eyes super migraine, where if I see light, I think my head will explode and I'll get bricked up like at the Pilates class. But anyways, Aiden, would you recommend getting bricked up at a Pilates class?
Yeah. But also...
would you recommend Argylle?
I would not recommend Argylle. It's a movie that is almost fun and always annoying. Connor, would you recommend Argylle?
You didn't ask me if I'd recommend getting bricked up at a Pilates class.
Would you?
I spent 15 hours behind bars for that. No. I wouldn't recommend... Well, no.
Like considered it?
I don't know if I'd go so far as to recommend it or not recommend it. If you're a Redditor, you're going to love it.
Will they?
Yes. It might be too confusing.
It's too.
But then they can talk on Reddit and be like, the most complex and confusing twist movie ever. With more twists than M. Night Shyamalan's whole career combined. Like the movie, like annoyingly
stole this idea from Rick and Morty.
The idea of doing a couple twists and flips and shit like that in a spy movie is fun, and it's like really fun for the first half hour of the movie, and then it's like, okay, just gain a plot, and then like maybe do like one more twist, go for an hour, and then one more reconceptualizing twist, like when Henry Cavill shows up and says, what if Argylle was real? And then you're like, oh shit, that sets up a good sequel. But like make it like 2 or 3 twists. Not like, wow, this is gonna get retwisted again and go out of existence. It just stops making fucking sense or being coherent. And it's like, oh, so this movie's 2.5 hours of bullshit. That's what it feels like at the end. And the action is good occasionally, but it's also really bad at times. And it's a mixed bag. It's also too fucking long. So, not really. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's like mediocre is probably the word for it. Confusing and mediocre. So I guess no, but it's not like the worst thing I've ever watched. So Aiden, would you recommend?
I already said no.
So Aiden, have you ever been arrested getting